Hello students, today I'll begin with Unit 3 of the essay Bores by E.V. Lucas. Of all bores, the most repellent specimen is the one who comes close up, the button-holing bore. So in this unit you will come across a variety of bores as described by Lucas. So first of all, he mentions about the button-holing bores. The button-holing bores are the ones who keep boring you without your will. Okay, so they won't ask for your permission whether we can bore you or not, and they will start boring you with their talks. This is the kind described by a friend of mine with a vivid sense of phrase as the man who spreads birdlime all over you. So Lucas says that the button-holing bores are best described by a friend of his in the manner of through a phrase where he said that the button-holing bores are the ones, they are the man who spreads birdlime all over you. Now what is spreading birdlime? Birdlime is a kind of sticky substance which is spread over branches where the birds sit in order to catch the birds. Okay, so here we can say that the bores spread birdlime means they trap us. Okay, the listeners or the audience are trapped by the bores, just like the birds are trapped by spreading birdlime. A bore who keeps a reasonable way off can be dealt with, but when they lean on you, you are done. So till the bores maintain a kind of restrictions with their talks, we can deal with them. But when these bores are adamant on boring us continuously, then we are completely done away with it. We are completely finished. We have to bear them. It is worst when they fix your eyes only a foot away and tell a funny story that isn't funny. So the worst condition he's talking about is that when these bores fix their eyes on the listeners and they are just standing a foot away and they keep on narrating a funny story which actually is not funny at all. It is a kind of a very flat story, a flat joke. Nothing is so humiliating as to have to counterfeit laughter at the bidding of a bore, but we do it. So he says that the most humiliating part is that when we are listening to such stories which are flat, not at all funny, and still we have to laugh at these stories at the hint given by a bore. When a bore is narrating such a story which is not at all funny, and still we have to satisfy that person by giving away laughter, this is the most insulting and humiliating condition. The incurable weakness and benignancy of human nature once again. So why are we compelled to laugh at the stories which are not at all funny? Because we are human beings and our nature has this weakness, the weakness of being kind at heart. Benignancy means kindness. We are so benevolent, we are so kind-hearted that we cannot make a bore sad by saying that yes, you are boring us. So human nature, this incurable weakness of human nature of being kind, this is the reason why we continue to bear bores. Then there is the bore who begins a funny story, and although you tell him you have heard it, doesn't stop. So another kind of bore is a person who starts narrating a funny story, and even if you keep on telling him that I have already heard this story, but still he won't stop until he has finished his story. What should be done with them? Okay, what should be done with him? So Lucas is asking us a question that how can we deal with this kind of a bore? Another of the worst types of bore is the man who says, where should we be without our sense of humor? Okay, so such such an ironic condition where a person who is a bore, he is boring the other person, and above all, he has the audacity to say that how are we to survive without our sense of humor. So he's unaware of his boring nature, and he keeps on saying that how can we afford to survive if we don't have this sense of humor. He is even capable of saying, nothing but my unfailing sense of humor saved me. So that person even has the courage to say that it was his sense of humor who saved him in some particular situation. There is also the man who says, live and let live, as my poor dead father used to say. So there are some bores who keep on saying that we should follow the concept of live and let live, and still they keep on boring the other person and make it difficult for them to live in the presence of a bore. There was once an eccentric peer, I forget both his name and the place where I read about him, who had contracted, all unconsciously, the habit of thinking aloud. And in this world of artifice, where society is cemented and sustained very largely by a compromise between what we think and what we say, his thoughts were very often at variance with his words. Now, this one is a pretty long sentence, so I'll just take it line wise and then explain to you. There was once an eccentric peer, a strange peer. I forget both his name and the place where I read about him. So now he's talking about a person who had developed a very strange, a very eccentric habit. Now, Lucas is unable to recall his name and the place where he read about this particular person. And this person had contracted unconsciously the habit of thinking aloud. So, whatever was his stream of thoughts, he used to speak it aloud. This was the habit which he contracted, and that too unconsciously. So, he was not aware that he has this habit of speaking aloud. And in this world of artifice means the world of tricks, of cunningness. So, in this cunning world, tricky world, where society is cemented and sustained very largely by a compromise between what we think and what we say. So he says that in the present society, we know that there is a huge difference between what we actually think and what we actually utter, what we actually speak out. So there's a difference between our thoughts and what we say. So here he's saying that this particular person who had developed this habit of speaking aloud, there was a huge difference in what he thought and what he said in reality. So there was a huge variance in between these two things, his thoughts and what he spoke aloud. One of the stories in the memoirs in which I found him describes how he met an acquaintance in St. James Street, and after muttering quite audibly to himself for a few minutes as they walked side by side. Now, here Lucas is narrating a particular incident mentioned by this particular person in his memoirs, and where he says that how he met with an acquaintance, a known person, in St. James Street, and after muttering, after speaking, quite audibly, in a voice which was quite audible, for a few minutes as they walked side by side. And what he uttered, what was he muttering at that time? He said, for that particular person whom he met in the St. James Street, he said aloud what he was thinking within. He expressed it aloud, and that too unconsciously. He said, confound it, what a nuisance meeting this fellow. I've always disliked him, but now that we have met, I suppose I must ask him to dinner. So this is what he spoke aloud unconsciously, and what he said was that he was quite angry and felt that this person was a nuisance whom he met in the St. James Street, and he had always disliked him. But now that they have met, it is a formal courtesy to ask him for dinner. So, this is what he spoke aloud. He stopped and said, with every appearance of cordiality, now with quite in a quite cordial manner, he said to that other fellow, "You will dine with us this evening, won't you?" So, on one hand, he's speaking aloud his thoughts, where he's saying that I always disliked this person, but now because we have met, I am compelled to ask him for dinner. On the other hand, when he is actually speaking to that person, he very cordially invites him for dinner. Well, as a sheet of armor plate against Boers, I don't think we could do much better than cultivate the habit of thinking truthfully aloud. So he says that the best shield against a defending shield against Boers is developing this habit of thinking aloud, thinking truthfully aloud, whatever we are thinking, to speak it aloud. Unless we can do this or train ourselves to be downright offensive, there is no remedy against Boers. So he says that until and unless we develop this habit of speaking aloud our thoughts, or we train ourselves to be straight away offensive, there is no remedy against Boers. There is nothing on this earth that can save us from Boers, except total evasion. Okay, this is means either you totally avoid the Boers, or you develop this habit of truthfully speaking aloud whatever you are thinking. There is no other way of preventing oneself from the clutches of a Boers. No Boer ever says, after no matter how many hints, I'll avoid that man in future, I know I bore him. So the hard reality is that a Boer will never confess or never realize that I will avoid boring this person in future because I have bored him enough. No Boer is going to say such words. So they will always flourish, and therefore the Boers will always prosper and flourish because they will always successfully get an audience or a patient listener. Why? Because we human beings are bound to be kind hearted. But if a certain famous weekly humorous paper were to cease publication, distasteful and incredible thought, there would automatically be a decrease in both topics because then no one could any longer repeat those sayings of his children which are good enough for Punch. Now, here he is hinting at Punch, and we have already read about Punch in the introduction given for E.V. Lucas. So he says that in case the publication of Punch is stopped, anyhow it ceases, then somehow a few topics are going to decrease from the list of the Boers. When the Boers seek for certain topics on which they can, bore the other people or continue speaking for n number of minutes, these topics are going to decrease with this when the publication of Punch would cease. Because what will happen, then nobody will have any experiences to share which will be good enough to be published in Punch. So all in all, on a very subtle note, he ends this essay by saying that he's hinting that even Punch is not full of very substantial matter or something like that. So if the publication of Punch is seized, then also there will be a kind of restriction on the topics which the Boers take up in order to make other people bore with their continuous talks. So in this essay Boers, we are given an idea about how the Boers execute their tactics of boring the people, how many kinds of Boers exist in this world, how we can protect ourselves from getting bored in the company of a Boer person. What are the self defending techniques? This is all what Lucas has discussed in this essay, Boers. That's all for the explanation of the essay Boers. Thank you.